You can have my last cocoa for free, she chirps, voice small but sure. But you have to step out here and stand in the sunlight with me for 5 whole minutes. That's the deal. In the gust of frigid air and chocolate-sweet steam, Alexander hears a direct challenge to his deepest fear. 5 minutes, 1 warm drink, a sliver of sun. This absurd bargain is about to shatter the glass wall he's built between himself and the world. The sleet came sideways at the Burger Barn drive-thru, needling the black limo that idled behind the pay window. Inside the back seat, Alexander Sterling, founder of Sphere Tech, worth several $1 billion, clutched his VR headset the way other people grip rosaries. Since a humiliating onstage panic attack 9 months earlier, he had worn that visor like armor anytime the real world tried to reach him. Grace Miller, his chauffeur assistant, looked at him in the mirror and asked as gently as possible whether he wanted to pay with card or Apple Pay. Alex couldn't answer. Even the prospect of lowering the window made his chest telescope inward. A tiny knock ticked against the glass. Both adults flinched. Standing in the sleet was an 8-year-old girl wearing a puffy coat 3 sizes too large. Behind her, a red pushcart hissed steam like a chimney. A cardboard sign said, "Hot cocoa, pay what you can." She waved up at the tinted window. "Hi, I'm Ella. This cup's for him." She pointed squarely at Alex, then held up a paper cup crowned with whipped cream. Grace cracked the window an inch. "Sweetheart, we're blocking traffic. Cars are stacked behind us." Ella leaned closer, voice matter-of-fact. "Special deal. He gets the last cocoa of the day, but only if he stands outside in the sunlight with me for 5 whole minutes. That's the price. Sunlight." The sky was a pewter lid offering only a ragged hole of pale glow. But the girl's eyes, brilliant cobalt, didn't blink. Grace turned in her seat. "Sir, you can refuse." Alex remembered his therapist's note about micro-exposures. 5 minutes at a time. This felt scripted by fate. He nodded once. Grace lowered the window. Cold air slapped his face, but a richer smell arrived, with it wood-smoked chocolate and vanilla. "Rule 2. Ella said, handing him the cup, no lid. "You have to see the steam." Grace exited, first umbrella up. Alex inched across the leather legs, shaking so hard his shoes rattled on the floor mat. The limo door opened. Wind punched through his coat. One wingtip touched wet asphalt, then the other. He left the VR headset behind. The world met him unfiltered. Ella guided him to the pushcart under the drive-thru's leaky awning. Look, the sun's peaking. A faint ray really did pierce the clouds, glinting on puddles. She clicked a sunflower-shaped kitchen timer. 5 minutes. Sips slowly, magic-like, small sips. The first taste was dark and smoky, more grown-up than any cocoa he remembered. He focused on the flavor instead of the line of honking cars. Ella chattered how her grandma roasted beans upstairs, how whipped cream was cloud armor, how standing under real clouds recharges your solar battery. She was part child, part caffeine-powered TED Talk. 2 minutes in, Alex noticed his shoulders weren't as high as his ears. At minute 4, the drizzle eased. Grease from the burger fryers mixed with chocolate in a strangely comforting perfume. When the timer dinged at 5, Ella clapped. Mission complete. Grace hurried him back inside the limo. Alex collapsed into his seat, heart still hammering but charged with a surprising warmth, an unfamiliar sense of small victory. Ella tapped on the glass once more, pressing a crayon business card against it. Ella's Sun and Cocoa missions. Textile ready to receive tomorrow's quest. As the limo pulled away, he watched her pushcart disappear into an apartment stairwell, steam trailing like a flag of conquest. That evening in his penthouse, Alex managed something he hadn't done in months, pacing the living room floor without VR mediation. Grace kept discreet watch phone ready in case panic resurfaced, but instead he stopped at the window overlooking Boston Harbor. The clouds parted just enough to splash amber light across the water. He lifted the empty cocoa cup, inhaled the last breath of chocolate, and typed, "Ready, Yan," to the number on the card. A moment later, a gif of a thumbs up popped onto the screen, followed by mission number 2. Day 2. Open your balcony door, take 10 deep breaths. Bonus list 3 things you can see that make you say, Text me back. Ella. Was that a smile tugging at his lips? He wasn't sure, but he wrote the mission on a sticky note and placed it beside an older one that read, "Don't die on stage." Beneath it, he added a single word, progress. In a fourth-floor walk-up that smelled of roasting cacao, Ella counted the day's earnings $8.25, plus a priceless mission success. She logged everything in a spiral notebook. Client 01, sunlight tolerance 5-minute goal 15 min by Friday. Grandma Millie chuckled while wiping counters. You and those trade deals, kiddo. Ella grinned. Rich people forget how to breathe, Coco reminds them. She set her alarm to wake early. Tomorrow she'd brew an extra dark batch and add a pinch of chili for courage. Near midnight, Alex ended a SphereTech board meeting conducted entirely in holograms. Directors congratulated him on revenue, unaware their CEO had spent 5 minutes in open air that day. He removed the visor, studied the night sky through glass, and just before bed read one more text from Ella. One night, Mr. Alex. Remember Coco and Roller courage out more. He switched off the synthetic skylight and let the genuine darkness settle over him unfiltered for the first time in almost a year. The next morning, Ella's text chimed onto Alexander Sterling's phone while he was still tangled in sheets. Morning, Mr. Alex, mission number 2. Open your balcony door, breathe 10 big breaths, list 3 things that make you say, don't skip breakfast. He stared at the glowing screen, half amused, half queasy. The balcony was 23 floors above a city he had studiously avoided. Winds up there howled like freight trains, and the glass railing felt more fragile than a spreadsheet of falling profits. Yet a promise was a promise. He shuffled to the sliding door thumb, hovering over the latch. Click. Cold air punched through the thermal seal. He stepped out far enough that the hem of his cashmere robe flapped in the gust. 1 breath diesel and sea salt. 2 roasting coffee from a corner cafe. 3 leather and ozone from the storm clouds rolling off the harbor. He counted all 10 palms pressed to the rail knuckles, white but steady. Inside again, he typed the list as instructed. 1. Harbor smell like childhood sailing trips. 2. Fresh coffee drifting up 23 floors. 3. The hiss of wind that isn't a panic hiss. He hit send, then noticed his hands weren't shaking. A text bounced back instantly, a cartoon Coco mug flexing a bicep. Grace Miller found him standing in the kitchen, which was odd because he hadn't voluntarily prepared food since Singapore. Mission accomplished, she asked. Balcony. 10 breaths, Alex confirmed, lifting a banana in unsure victory. Grace's eyebrows shot up. She snapped a quick photo and forwarded it to Dr. Felicia Patel, the cognitive behavior therapist who'd been treating Alex via encrypted telesessions. Dr. Patel replied with a surprised emoji and the word excellent in capital letters. That afternoon, a conference call began in SphereTech's holographic boardroom. Normally, Alex appeared as a polished avatar projected from his penthouse. Today, to the director's shock, he dialed in on plain old video flesh and blood against a background of real Boston skyline instead of his usual virtual forest. When CFO Malcolm Cho asked why the scenery looked different, Alex answered truthfully, "I'm trying a sunlight protocol." The pause on the call lasted longer than the previous quarter's earnings summary. After the meeting, Grace gently asked what had possessed him. Micro-exposure principle, Alex said, quoting Dr. Patel. If people see me in the real world, maybe I'll believe I belong there. Grace, driver gatekeeper and sometimes reluctant accomplice, decided to become co-conspirator. She located his misplaced fitness band and set up heart rate logging to measure panic spikes. Data she believed could tame dragons. A block away from Burger Barn, Ella Brooks wiped condensation off her Coco Cart's lid and scribbled on her spiral notebook. Client Darzana 1, Day 2, Balcony 1010, HR unknown. Tomorrow goal 7-minute sun. Grandma Millie roasted cacao beans on a single burner stove near the window, filling their cramped apartment with an earthy perfume. He texts back, "Yup, breathing complete listed smells. He's a detail guy, Granny." Ella grinned, flash of gapped baby teeth. Next we get him walking to the bench across the street. Millie shook her head, impressed and wary in equal parts. "Don't forget your homework, little executive." Ella waved a mittened hand. "Social emotional learning project. I'm scoring an A." That evening, Alex sat on his couch, VR visor resting on the coffee table like a relic, and opened a private analytics dashboard Grace had built. Heart rate during balcony exposure baseline, 103 BPM peak, 119, dropped to 92 within 3 minutes. Better than yesterday's limo chaos. He allowed himself a faint smile. Niche progress, but progress. Ella's next text lit the screen. Tomorrow, mission number 3. Meet me at the bench opposite Burger Barn. 10 minutes sunny or sleety. Cocoa on me again. Bring something you made yourself. He stared at something you made. The last physical object he'd crafted was a custom VR workspace, hardly giftable. He wandered, his penthouse eyes skimming award statues and prototype gadgets, then stopped at a dusty walnut acoustic guitar leaning behind a bookshelf. In college, he used to write code by day and strum jazz chords by night. Since the panic disorder music had become background noise pumped through AI playlists, he tuned the strings fingers clumsy and played a hesitant G major. It rang warm and imperfect, just like Ella's Coco. He wiped away a sudden sting in his eyes. Grace pulled the limo up to the familiar curb the next afternoon, keeping engine idling for escape just in case. Alex emerged, guitar slung in a slim carbon case, Nisha's custom shop, of course. Ella waved from the bench beneath a half-dead maple tree, 2 steaming cups on a recycled cardboard tray. No awning, no shelter. Alex walked the 25 steps on trembling legs, each footfall a small rebellion against panic. He sat. Ella started her sunflower timer. The winter sun broke through for a fleeting cameo, gilding everything in improbable warmth. "What did you bring?" she asked, eyes bright. "A song," he said, and removed the guitar. He played the first bars of a bluesy tune, fingers stumbling but earnest. Ella's grin widened with every chord. Grace, filming from the limo with telelens Steadicam, wiped a tear she'd later swear was dust. Mid-song, Alex realized he hadn't scanned the crowd for threats in over a minute. He finished with a shaky flourish. Ella applauded so loudly passers-by paused to look. Mission accomplished, and then some. Not everything went smoothly. 2 teenage boys on electric scooters zoomed past, one shouting, "Play Freebird moneybags." Alex jolted, adrenaline flooding back. Ella slipped her hand over his sleeve. "It's okay. They're just noisy birds." He breathed. The surge softened. Timer dinged at 10 minutes. Ella cheered like he'd run a marathon. In his chest, it felt almost the same. Ella handed him a folded sheet, a weekly level-up plan sketched in crayons. Monday balcony, Tuesday bench, Wednesday crosswalk, Thursday convenience store patio, Friday park gazebo. At the bottom, she'd written, "Level Up Friday," in glitter pen. He tucked it into his coat like a shareholder letter. As they said goodbye, Ella added a bonus challenge. "Tomorrow you pay. Buy 1 cup from me and gift it to a stranger. Pass the magic on." Alex chuckled to sound rusty. Deal. He climbed into the limo, cheeks flushed from real weather. Grace glanced at the heart rate chart on her tablet, peak 130 BPM at the scooter, shout recovery to 90 within 90 seconds. Improvement. Dr. Patel would be thrilled. In her apartment that night, Ella updated the notebook. Client number 1001, day 3, 10 mini bench, played guitar, next buy and gift Coco. Solar battery up 30%. Grandma Millie slid a mug toward her. Taste batch 19, little more chilly. Ella blew across the surface, sipped, nodded solemnly. Hero Coco 2.0, perfect for Friday. Millie smiled. Your Mr. Alex is a brave one. Everyone's brave, Ella said, flipping her notebook shut. Some people just need chocolate to prove it. Across the river, Alexander Sterling turned off every artificial lamp in his penthouse, leaving only city starlight to guide him. He stood at the balcony, door open this time, letting the winter wind coil through expensive furniture. He strummed the guitar quietly. Somewhere down on street level, a few taxi horns created an offbeat rhythm section. He let it play. And for the first night in 9 months, he fell asleep without the VR visor, dreaming not of conference stage disasters, but of a yellow-coated girl handing out steaming mugs beneath a slice of winter sun. Ella's Thursday mission arrived just after sunrise. Day 4. 1. Buy a Coco from me. 2. Cross the street and give it to the first person who looks cold. 3. Tell them pass the warmth on. 4. Text me 3 things you noticed while you were in motion. Alexander Sterling read the message at his kitchen island, breathing in the chilly, spiced aroma of Hero Coco 2.0, drifting from the microwave mug Grace had learned to make. Outside, winter sunlight bounced off frost-silver roofs and gave the glass skyline a harmless glow. Crossing the street, 30 feet of open pavement, honking traffic strangers still punched every alarm button in his amygdala. Grace glanced at the phone. Ready for that? I've been ready for worse, Alex said, surprising them both. At lunchtime, the limo turned onto the familiar service road behind Burger Barn. But instead of idling, Grace pulled into a meter spot. Alex's pulse jackhammered as he stepped out with a crisp 20 in hand. Ella was already waving from the cart. A half circle of lunchtime regulars milled about waiting for cocoa and selfies with the miracle girl. Ella grinned. "Today you're the customer, Mr. Alex. What size?" "Whatever the coldest stranger needs," he said, handing over the bill. She poured into a biodegradable cup, sprinkled chili for courage, and wrote, "Pass it on" in Sharpie across the sleeve. Traffic roared. Tires hissed on wet asphalt. Alex felt his throat shrink. Grace kept a few paces back, support, not crutch. He scanned faces until he found a woman, maybe late 50s, shaking in a thin denim jacket at the bus stop across the road. Perfect candidate, terrifying distance. He stepped off the curb. Car engines sounded louder down here than from limo windows. Midway across, a delivery truck's air horn blasted. Adrenaline shot ice through his veins, but his feet kept moving. When he reached the far sidewalk, city noise dropped to a tolerable hum, as if courage had its own muffling frequency. "Excuse me," he told the woman, extending the cocoa. "Someone gave this to me on one condition: pass the warmth on." Her brows lifted. She accepted the cup with a grateful sigh. "That's incredibly kind." Kind. He'd forgotten the word could apply to him. Traffic light flipped again. He returned the way he'd come. Ella started a slow clap that spread through the mini crowd until even drive-through employees leaned out the back door applauding. Alex's face burned, but not from fear. Something else. Ella flipped her timer. "You were on the move for 2 minutes, 36 seconds. What did you notice?" Alex thought. Tire noise has layers. The bakery vent on Maple Street smells like cardamom. And... He paused, surprised by his answer. "My shoes on wet asphalt make a sound like brush strokes." Ella sketched that into her notebook word for word. Grace forwarded the video to Dr. Patel, who replied with triple exclamation points and a graph showing Alex's heart rate plateauing faster every day. Alex reviewed the data on his phone during the ride home, a half smile forming when Ella texted a gold star sticker gif. But the euphoria didn't last long. Back at the penthouse, the SphereTech legal team awaited in hologram form, recapping the board's latest ultimatum. Alex must present the company's new quantum storage platform live on stage in Denver 3 weeks away. Investors were wary after 9 months without public sightings. Remote avatars won't reassure Wall Street, the general counsel said. They want flesh. After the call, Alex stood at the window, nerves simmering. Denver's arena seated 8,000 an ocean compared with a drive-through lane. Grace asked if he would refuse. "Not this time," he said, voice low. "But I need a bigger mission." Friday dawned to weak sun and mission number 5. Level up Friday. Walk with me to Maple Street Bakery. We'll drink cocoa, plus cardamom lattes. You carry the thermos, I carry the jokes. Don't forget music you made yourself. 5 blocks, 3 crosswalks, a bakery queue. It resembled the wrong side of impossible, yet something about the way Ella wrote, we made it feel like shared risk, shared reward. He practiced first. Grace cleared the underground parking ramp. Alex walked its 100-foot length while she timed recovery. Dr. Patel called into coach, breathing inhale 4, hold 2, exhale 6. By noon, heart rate spikes shortened to seconds. At 2:30, they met Ella at the cocoa cart. She handed him a stainless thermos and a lanyard holding a laminated badge. Cocoa Missionary, VIP Walker. Alex couldn't help laughing. Grace walked 10 feet behind, filming. First block manageable. Ella narrated trivia, how cardamom was once worth more than gold, how sunlight vitamin-charged hot chocolate molecules, pseudoscience but charming. Second block truck sputtered, backfired like a rifle. Alex flinched hard. Ella kept talking smooth as a vinyl record. Did you know star anise is shaped like tiny steering wheels, until his breathing synced again? At the third block, a cluster of college kids recognized him. Yo, is that Sterling Dude legend? They took shaky selfies that would hit social feeds minutes later. Cold panic tingled down his spine, but a stronger warmth spread from the thermos in his hand, the hope he now carried for others. Bakery bell jingled as they entered. The place smelled of yeast, cardamom, and sweet relief. They claimed a corner table. Alex removed his guitar from a slim case. Grace insisted the exercise wouldn't count unless he completed every mission clause. He strummed a soft riff he'd written the night before, titled Brushstroke Asphalt. Customers paused mid-cruller to listen. By the time their lattes cooled, he had been outside in motion for 47 minutes without a visor or a meltdown. Ella's notebook gained another star and a new goal. Park Gazebo concert, next Friday. Alex wrote the date down, circled it. But dragons never stay asleep long. That evening, an anonymous finance blog leaked rumors that SphereTech's CEO was unstable, relying on a child for medical treatment. Share price dipped 3% after hours. Board members sent frantic emails. Grace pressed her phone to Alex's ear. Investors demanded comment by morning. His first instinct was to retreat. Instead, he opened the balcony door, stepped into night air, and dialed a conference line. Tomorrow, he said into the wind, I'll issue a statement downtown in person. His voice sounded like someone he used to know. Ella's final text of the day vibrated a moment later. You walked 5 blocks. Coco math says that's 50 smiles added to the world. Keep counting, Mr. Alex. Good night, plus. He saved the message, turned the phone face down, and watched city lights flicker like encouragements. Somewhere miles away, 8,000 empty arena seats waited. He imagined walking across that stage, guitar in hand, a thermos of cocoa waiting at the podium, an impossible picture that suddenly felt sketchable, given time data and a girl who believed in magic. Inside, Grace added the day's heart rate trend to their spreadsheet. Dr. Patel emailed an all-caps subject line. Agnostic progress. Objective, keep going. Alex closed his eyes and pictured the jittery brushstroke whispers of tires on wet pavement, now a symphony rather than a threat. He whispered back, I'll keep going. The SphereTech Media Suite on Atlantic Avenue glittered with chrome and smart glass, a showroom built for product demos, not personal confession. Yet at 10 sharp, Alexander Sterling stepped through its revolving door, Hero Cocoa thermos in one hand and a guitar case in the other. Reporters pressed against velvet ropes outside. A satellite truck's dish spun overhead like an all-seeing eye. Employees who hadn't laid real eyes on their CEO since the Singapore debacle froze mid-stride as he limped past security carbon fiber AFOs, plainly visible beneath tailored trousers. A few clapped before awe strangled the sound. In the front row of folding chairs sat Ella Brooks and Grandma Millie. The cocoa cart, specially permitted by building security, wore a crisp banner that read, Sun and Cocoa Missions. Ella clutched a clipboard titled Stage Notes, her feet swinging above the floor. Nearby, Dr. Felicia Patel kept watch on a heart rate feed streaming from Alex's smartwatch, while Terrence monitored oxygen levels. Denver's altitude rehearsals had taught them caution even at sea level. Grace stood off to the side, fielding last-minute microphone checks and staring down panic that wasn't hers. Alex took the stage 2 minutes behind schedule, forcing himself not to glance at the exit. The lights felt scorching, the hush carnivorous. He began. Thank you for coming. I've been absent from physical stages for almost a year, and rumors say I'm unstable, manipulated, unfit to steer SphereTech. Today I offer data plus a small story. He unscrewed the thermos cap. Steam rose and curled in the Klieg lights. Reporters instinctively leaned closer. 3 days ago, a child asked me to cross the street and give cocoa to a stranger. Simple. Terrifying. I did it, and my resting heart rate dropped 14 points. He gestured toward the screen behind him. Grace cued a split-screen video of that crossing, overlaid with heart rate and cortisol charts trending downward. Real numbers, not platitudes. Some call that manipulation. I call it exposure therapy driven by kindness, and I'll stake my job on it. He set the thermos on the podium, opened the guitar case, and slung the instrument over his shoulder. The first chord quavered. The second settled. By the third, his breathing aligned with the strings. 60 seconds later, he eased the guitar aside. Our board wants proof I can lead in public. SphereTech's Denver keynote is in 3 weeks. If I panic and leave that stage, I'll resign and donate my shares to the Sun Cup Foundation. If I finish, I ask only the faith an 8-year-old granted me 5 minutes of real sunlight. Shutters fired like rain on tin. In the wings, Dr. Patel reported a peak heart rate of 126, already sliding toward baseline. Alex bowed, walked off without assistance, and the room exhaled. The effect rolled outward in minutes. Bloomberg ran the banner. Sterling bets billions on 5 minutes of sunlight. Share price ticked up 2% by closing bell. Therapists praised the exposure hierarchy approach. Trolls mocked the guitar solo, but the positive signal drowned out the snark. Back at the manor, Ella logged the milestone in her spiral notebook. Public presser 8 million on stage. HR steady. Next goal, Denver Arena mission. Grandma Millie roasted a celebratory batch of beans laced with orange peel, courage plus optimism, she said, and named it Keynote Blend. Preparation for Denver escalated. The arena seated more than 8,000. Alex and the team rented it on off nights to rehearse. Ella taped fluorescent marks every 10 feet from backstage curtain to podium. Terrence timed arena laps while Dr. Patel coached via Bluetooth, identify 5 sounds, 5 textures stay rooted in sensory fact. One night Alex froze mid-walk, memories of the Singapore crowd surging. Ella, standing by a spotlight tower, whispered the emergency mantra Coco and courage out until he unlocked his knees and finished the route. 11 seconds from freeze to motion, his best escape yet. 48 hours before showtime, SphereTech engineers discovered a last-minute flaw in the quantum storage demo. Alex would need to reference the patch live. The extra detail cracked his rehearsal rhythm. Panic spiked, and he paced backstage in a spiral. Ella appeared with 2 miniature thermoses and declared them Double Dark Hero Cocoa, 1 sip, now 1 for backstage tomorrow. "You're gambling, Fear," she said. "Fear's just fog. Walk long enough and the sun burns it off." Show night arrived. Arena lights dimmed. 15 million viewers tuned to the live stream. Alex stepped into a single spotlight, guitar in hand, and stared into darkness that shouted like a crowd. Heart rate hit 118 high, but controllable. He played the riff, set the guitar down, and delivered the technical pitch, including the last-minute patch note, voice steady. Then he told the Coco story, 5-minute mission sidewalk, victory's kindness as accelerator. Courage compounds faster than Moore's law when fueled by compassion, he concluded. A roar lifted the roof. Backstage, he scooped Ella into an awkward but real hug. Dr. Patel's tablet showed functional remission in neon graphs. Stock opened the next morning 17% higher. Sun Cup donations overloaded the portal before noon. On the flight home, Alex walking down the air stairs into open wind for the first time, he presented Ella with a contract making her junior advisor for courage-driven design and depositing a stipend into a college fund. She squealed so loudly cabin pressure sensors blinked. Denver had proved the fog burnable. New metrics filled the Manor's wall display. More than 300 Sun Cup applicants average first-month sunlight exposure, up 200%. Ella designed a new chart for Alex titled, "From Bench to Boardwalk." His next dream was to walk a full kilometer along Cape Cod's planks by summer. One raw April dawn, he sent Ella a balcony selfie, baseline heart 70, no visor in sight, captioned, "Mission." Her reply came at once. "Enjoy the sun for fun, not therapy. New level unlocked. Just living." He laughed out loud, a deep, unfettered sound that bounced off Boston Harbor. The fog had fled, leaving only daylight and the lingering aroma of chili-spiced cocoa drifting from a paper thermos cup on the kitchen counter, evidence that sometimes 5 minutes in the sun can change everything. A shy sunrise scraped pink across Cape Cod Bay as Alexander Sterling eased out of the passenger seat of Grace Miller's electric SUV. June salt air smelled nothing like Boston exhaust or Denver's thin altitude. It smelled like possibility. Ahead lay the mile-long Provincetown boardwalk, fresh planks stretching straight into morning fog. Ella Brooks bounced beside him, sunflower timer swinging from her wrist like a pocket watch that couldn't wait to start ticking. 3 months had passed since the Denver keynote. SphereTech's stock still hovered near its high, and the Sun Cup Foundation had cleared its first million in public donations. Alex had traded his charcoal suits for breathable tech linen and replaced the VR headset with polarized sunglasses. Today's mission, though, was the boldest yet: walk a full kilometer with no physical support, no panic exit, and hundreds of strangers, all donors, trial families, SphereTech engineers cheering from lawn chair sidelines. Terrence taped rainbow-colored cones every 50 meters along the railing, each cone bearing a QR code that linked to live EMG and heart rate telemetry. Dr. Felicia Patel, back in Boston, monitored the feed with a team of med school interns who had turned Alex's exposure journey into a semester research practicum. Grandma Millie rolled up with the mobile Coco card, its fresh coat of marine blue paint flashing, "Sun and Coco missions live in bold white." The card offered 2 brews, Courage Classic and a new high-caffeine blend called Boardwalk Bold. Millie handed Alex a small travel cup. He inhaled steam laced with orange peel and chili. "Smells like fireworks," he said. Ella clapped her hands, speech first, then steps. Alex faced the makeshift stage, a simple riser draped in SphereTech banners, and exhaled slowly. 40 employees, dozens of Sun Cup trial participants in folding exosuits, and half of Provincetown's Chamber of Commerce waited. Even a few television crews had shown up after Dana Chu teased the walk on her morning segment. He cleared his throat. 3 years ago, I coded a neural network optimizer that shaved milliseconds off storage writes. Today, a third grader taught me an optimizer for courage: 5 minutes in the sun, 1 cup of cocoa, repeat. Laughter rippled. If data mean anything, we're about to prove you can scale a miracle all the way to a kilometer. He raised his cup. To every step we're scared to take. Applause lifted off like gulls from a dock. Ella shoved the microphone back on its stand and sprinted to cone 0. She turned timer poised. Ready, Mr. Alex. He glanced at Grace. She was filming but also silently mouthing their grounding mantra. He nodded. Ready. The first 20 meters felt almost casual. Boots on wood produced a hollow clop-clop, and crossbeams vibrated pleasantly underfoot. A mild onshore breeze feathered the hem of his jacket. Heart rate was 102 and steady. Ella jogged backward in front of him, calling out sensory tasks. Name a color you see teal the water. Name a smell seaweed and cardamom. At cone 50, the boardwalk narrowed near an observation deck, crowded with onlookers. Alex's pulse quickened. Strangers' smartphones, the sense of no quick exit. He focused on data inhalation. Count, heel strike rhythm, shoulder tension. Numbers obeyed. He walked on. At cone 100, a sudden gust tore a tourist's baseball cap into the water. The crowd sucked in air. Alex's muscles spasmed. But before fear could ignite, Ella shouted, "Look, free frisbee for the fish." Laughter popped like a safety valve. His heart rate peaked at 128, then slid back under 110. Within 20 seconds, Terrence's console beeped approval. Halfway now? Dr. Patel texted Grace. Recovery curve textbook. Cone 300 unveiled the hardest test. The boardwalk's mid-span arched over a rocky inlet, railings low enough that horizon and water merged, a recipe for vertigo. Exactly where 9 months ago Alexander Sterling would have curled into a back seat and vanished into VR snow. He slowed. Breath fogged his sunglasses despite the mild air. The water below reflected drifting clouds, tricking depth perception. Thigh muscles tremored, threatening to lock. Ella stepped beside him, not in front. She didn't touch, just matched his pace. Remember tire brush strokes, she whispered. The asphalt music image returned, brush bristles swooshing paint across gray canvas. He heard that rhythm in the plank creaks and gull wings beating overhead. He stepped. Another. Mid-arch passed beneath his feet. Heart rate plateaued at 131, then eased. They cleared the hump. Cone 400 shimmered in the distance like a finish tape. The crowd, sensing the shift, began a slow clap that rose and rolled down the boards, echoing back as percussion. Grace filmed wiping tears with her sleeve. Terrence pumped a fist. EMG amplitude on Alex's left tibialis shot higher than ever, real muscular reinforcement, not adrenaline cheat. 5 cones remained. Ella darted ahead, grabbed the final flag, Suncup's sunflower emblem, and held it high. Alex's calves burned, but each step now felt lighter than arithmetic. 50 meters. 20. 10. He crossed cone 500 and touched the flag. For a beat there was only wind and the distant bark of seals on rocks. Then sound crashed in cheers, applause, camera shutters. Alex folded forward, palms braced on thighs, lungs hauling in the Atlantic. Ella looped the flag's lanyard over his neck like a medal. Grace rushed in next, then Terrence, then Grandma Millie, lugging a celebratory pitcher of Boardwalk Bold. Alex straightened just in time to see Dr. Patel's virtual avatar on a tablet screen, arms thrown up in victory. He sipped cocoa breath, finally calm enough to taste the citrus top note. Distance, he asked. 1,043 meters, Terrence said. You overshot. The crowd exploded again. TV crews moved in, but Alex waved them to wait. Instead, he turned to the trial participants, some standing, some seated in niche exosuits. Your turn, he said. You each pick your own flag. We'll count every meter. What followed looked less like a charity walk, and more like a carnival, wheelchairs pacing AFO users, exosuit legs clanking in sync, teenagers high-fiving gray-haired stroke survivors. Ella and Millie ladled cocoa to anyone whose cup ran low. Grace live-streamed the whole thing on SphereTech's channel. Boardwalk Miracle trended within 15 minutes. Several kids asked Ella for autographs. She signed each cup sleeve, then scribbled, "Mission Possible, Lao," on the boardwalk planks with sidewalk chalk. The phrase caught on. Soon, rainbow block letters marched from cone to cone. Late afternoon sun dipped, casting long shadows across a boardwalk polka-dotted in chalk hearts. Alex sat on a bench, exhaustion. Pleasant, not poisonous. Grace dropped beside him, handing over new numbers. Sun Cup had just surpassed 5,000 additional micro-donations, enough to fund 2 more cohorts in the nerve trial. He looked at the horizon, quiet smile curving. Remember when 5 minutes of sun felt impossible? Grace laughed. We just logged 2 hours. Ella bounded over timer dangling. Next level beach sand. Hard mode. Alex groaned theatrically, then winked. Deal after a recovery day. As evening descended, they wheeled the cocoa cart back toward parking. Alex insisted on pushing part of the way, muscles wobbly but obedient. He realized that for the first time in memory, he was happy to feel sore. Soreness proved motion. At the SUV, Ella tugged his sleeve. Hey, Mr. Alex, you never listed today's 3 things. He thought a moment. Okay, gull wings over water, cocoa steam in sea air, and the sound of chalk writing hope. Ella logged them satisfied. Mission closed. Back in Boston that night, the boardwalk telemetry scrolled across SphereTech's lobby wall. Employees paused, reading numbers like poetry distance, heart rate, recovery donations converted to scholarship slots. Ella's chalk phrase appeared in a photo slideshow, Mission Possible, glowing under sunset. Alexander Sterling watched from the mezzanine cane, dangling loosely in one hand, but not really needed, and let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, there were no more cones to count, only open paths waiting for data cocoa and a bit of sunlight. 6 weeks after the Provincetown walk, the mansion's glass atrium had turned into a war room of color-coded maps. Pushpin suns marked every city where a Sun and Cocoa station was slated to open: Chicago, Austin, Nairobi, Manila. The Nerve Clinical Trials early data front page in Nature Neuroscience had triggered a flood of grants and corporate matching. SphereTech's finance lead joked that Sunlight and Chocolate now outperformed server racks on the Q2 balance sheet. Alexander Sterling moved through the atrium without cane coffee mug in one hand, tablet in the other. Each morning he logged at least 500 indoor steps before meetings, Grace insisted, and the habit stuck. His AFO braces were now hidden beneath tailored chinos instead of headline articles. Reporters had new miracles to chase. Ella Brooks sat cross-legged on the floor, designing stickers that read, Beams, plus beans, brave. Grandma Millie scolded her with affectionate eyes whenever a marker cap rolled beneath the pepper plants. Terrence tinkered with a prototype Cocoa Cruiser, an e-bike cart fitted with a solar kettle, while Dr. Felicia Patel Skyped in from Johns Hopkins to discuss the trial's expansion to spinal stroke patients. Los Angeles wants 50 stations before year-end, Grace announced, breezing in with a tablet. And the UN's Global Health Fund is asking if we can adapt the model for refugee camps. Alex blinked. LA traffic displaced families, sudden scale. We'll need partners for that kind of rollout. I've drafted MOUs with MedAir and World Central Kitchen, she replied. Ella's sticker designs are on the cover pages. Grandma Millie pressed a cup into Alex's hand, Boardwalk Bold Extra Cinnamon. You'll need this if you're chasing sun in 5 time zones. The conversation broke when the atrium door burst open and a lean figure strode in. Ethan Ward, SphereTech's head of investor relations, impeccably corporate against the house's botanical chaos. He held a printout like a courtroom summons. Alex, we have a problem. A private equity consortium, BlackRise Atlantic, just filed a tender offer for a controlling stake in SphereTech. They've built a narrative that you're too distracted by philanthropy to focus on core business. The room hushed. Alex felt an echo of the old vertigo, but caught it early, grounding himself in cinnamon steam. They're after our quantum IP. They probably think I'll cave to keep the foundation safe. Grace's jaw set. Their first move will be to slash CSR budgets and spin Suncup off. Ella looked up, eyes wide. They want to take the cocoa away. Alex knelt beside her. Not if we remember the rules: 5 minutes of calm before action. He rose, shoulders squared. Ethan, schedule an emergency board session for tonight. We'll show numbers BlackRise can't ignore. Suncup stations are feeding directly into rehab product sales and brand equity. If they still push, we go hostile defense. Terrence added, and maybe walk the trading floor literally. Investors listen to a man who stands where his balance sheet lives. Alex smiled at the idea. Then book me a flight to New York. No VR, no limo hibernation. We'll take the Cocoa Cruiser through Times Square. 3 days later, Wall Street woke to something stranger than a bull statue draped in protest banners. Alexander Sterling riding a Cobalt e-bike cart along Broadway. Ella perched up front, handing steaming cups to bewildered traders at 7:30 a.m. A digital billboard above flashed, sunlight break, coffee break. Cameras clicked, passers-by live-streamed, and by the time trading opened, SphereTech's social feeds had more impressions than BlackRise's entire investor roadshow. Inside the exchange, Alex walked the floor unescorted. Heart rate held steady at 104 even when a CNBC anchor shoved a mic inches from his face. Distracted, he said, voice carrying over the bell, "Our philanthropic trial shaved rehab costs by 30% for partner hospitals." That's not distraction. That's vertical integration. The anchor pivoted to Ella, who offered him a cup. "Try courage," she said. The camera zoomed on the sleeve sticker. Beams plus beans. Brave. By closing bell, SphereTech stock had gained 5% on record volume. BlackRise quietly withdrew its tender offer, citing valuation mismatch. Back in Boston, the victory high faded into the hum of work. UN legal teams required layers of compliance. Chicago zoning stalled solar kettle permits. A Kenyan partner asked for a cocoa-free adaptation because beans were too pricey. Success, it turned out, weighed almost as much as vertigo once had. One muggy afternoon, Alex retreated to the greenhouse, exhaustion tugging. The pepper plants were waist-high, heavy with fruit. He pressed a palm to the glass, watching summer thunderheads roll in, and felt the familiar pre-panic fizz, too many obligations, too many watching eyes. Ella slipped in barefoot, holding a sheet of gold star stickers. She sensed storms the way sailors sensed pressure drops. "Forgot to measure your sun today," she said, handing him a sticker. "Go on 2 minutes at least." The glass roof amplified raindrops as he stepped outside into the garden. Warm rain soaked his shirt. The sky smelled of ozone and new possibilities. He set a timer for 2 minutes, then kept walking until he'd made a full lap around the grounds, shoes squelching in mud thunder, rumbling like a friendly drum. He returned dripping but breathing easier. Ella peeled a star and stuck it on his soaked lapel. "Now we have rain points too." That evening, he stood before the gathered team, Grace Terrence, Grandma Millie Ethan, Dr. Patel, on a screen, Ella at his side. Scaling SunCup isn't just kiosks and stickers, he told them. It's a values test. Every city we enter, someone will say the cocoa is a gimmick or the sun is unreliable. We don't argue with cynics. We show data, and we pour another cup. Grace raised her glass, cocoa, not wine, to making hope non-negotiable. They toasted. Outside, rain tapered into a breathless hush, and Boston streetlights slowly flickered on each bulb. Another point of data proving darkness is never the final metric. Ella tapped her clipboard. "Tomorrow's mission, teach me how to code the donation tracker so I can see the numbers too." Alex bent down. "Deal, but first lesson, always back up your files." She giggled. "Always have cocoa too." He looked at the constellation of pinprick suns on the world map, each one a site where 5 minutes of sunlight and a single warm drink were about to rewrite somebody's impossible. And for the first time since stepping onto that doomed stage in Singapore, Alexander Sterling realized he could imagine a future with no ceiling glass or otherwise, because what they'd built together wasn't just a therapy protocol or a tech empire. It was proof that courage once compounded scales light years beyond fear. Alex Sterling had never felt heat like the Jordanian sun at noon. It pressed down with a weight that made Boston's muggiest days feel like spring. Rows of beige tents rippled on the horizon at Zaatari refugee camp, the newest dot on SunCup's world map, and a place where cocoa beans cost more than sandals. Yet every morning, 30,000 people here queued for water bread, and now if the pilot worked a 5-minute ritual of warmth that didn't require chocolate at all. The solution sat on a flatbed truck, a solar kettle rig designed by SphereTech interns, polished mirrors, evacuated glass tubes, and an insulated vat for steeping Zaatar mint tea. Ella Brooks had named the blend Sunshine Sip after Googling regional herbs all night. She followed today's launch via live stream in Boston, headphones huge over her 9-year-old ears, ready to code donation updates the moment the first cup poured. Grace handled site logistics. Terrence trained local volunteers on water quality testing. Grandma Millie had stayed in Boston, perfecting a powdered cocoa concentrate that might someday arrive when supply chains eased. For now, tea would carry the mission message. 5 minutes, 1 warm drink, a sliver of courage. Alex stood beside the rig, wearing lightweight khakis and a baseball cap that already felt soaked. Children peeked from door flaps, curious about the tall foreigner with metal braces on his legs. He smiled, heart rate steady at 108 altitude and heat accounted for. A Jordanian logistics lead, Farah Najjar, demonstrated the serving process. Dipper sanitized, First pour into paper cup, add a sprig of mint, hand over with the Arabic phrase, Shajardak Tazdad, your courage grows. Alex tried the greeting. His accent drew giggles but bright eyes. The first official participant was a teen named Sammy Spinal Cord, injured by shrapnel. Terrence positioned him at a fold-out table shaded by canvas. Ella watched through Grace's phone camera in Boston. Timer ready, she announced across 6 time zones. Sammy closed his eyes, inhaled fragrant steam, and counted slow breaths as Farah coached. 45 seconds in, Alex noticed other residents forming a silent semicircle. They weren't pushing to be served. They just wanted to see if the ritual meant anything. After 5 minutes, Sammy opened his eyes, managed a tentative shrug, and whispered, "Feel light." Applause rippled and the line formed spontaneously. Ella's donation tracker dinged someone in Seattle had just funded a week's supply of tea. An hour later, a sand-laden wind rose out of nowhere, slamming into tents like an invisible truck. Tarps flapped. Dust turned the air bronze. Panic sparked. Children screamed, adults scrambled to lash ropes. Years ago, Alex would have bolted for an enclosed jeep. Today he planted himself beside the solar rig. "Lower mirrors, secure glass tubes," he shouted. Terrence and camp volunteers moved fast, but one panel slipped crashing to the dirt. Farah cried out. Shards glittered at her feet. A knot tightened in Alex's gut-loss chaos noise, the ingredients of a panic attack. He felt dizziness edge in. Ella's voice crackled through Grace's still live phone. Brushstroke, breathing Mr. Alex. Tires on wet asphalt. He seized the image brush bristles swishing across a street. The sand hiss became that sound. Inhale 4, hold 2, exhale 6. Vision steadied. He turned to Farah. "We can still serve. Use kettle heat for hand washing. Keep spirits up." They converted broken mirrors into makeshift windbreaks against the truck. Volunteers kept ladling tea. A boy of about 10, seeing Alex's trembling legs, mimicked stance beside him like a living brace. Together they poured cup after cup into a storm that lasted 30 minutes yet felt infinite. When the dust settled, laughter broke out at the absurdity of everyone coated head to toe in orange powder. Someone snapped a photo, Alex goggles askew grin, wide tea ladle raised like a torch, children circling him in the haze. Grace posted it with Ella's new sticker overlay. "Hope holds in any weather." Donations spiked again. That evening, seated under a sky jeweled with stars alien to Boston, Alex met with camp elders. They spoke of trauma heavier than sandstorms of kids who feared open ground because bombs once fell from blue sky. Farah asked if 5 minutes of tea could touch memories like that. "It isn't the tea," Alex said, voice hoarse from grit and sun. "It's the routine, the proof that bodies can calm. That community can gather for something small and safe. We track the data to show progress. You own the ritual to grow it." Elders exchanged looks, then one produced a hand-carved wooden spoon. "Use this for first serving tomorrow," he said. "Symbol old roots meet new heat." Alex accepted pulse warm. Grace's nightly debrief in the mission tent showed numbers heart rate recovery among first-day participants, averaged 15% faster than baseline. 30 local teens volunteered to continue training. Supply projection revealed mint, cost a fraction of cocoa, ideal for low-budget scale. But the line graph that mattered to Ella back home was simpler. Meters of walking done by Alex in high wind 38, unaided. She updated the digital badge next to his name, Storm Survivor, level unlocked. In Jordan, Alex lay on a cot replaying the storm moment. Years ago, the roar would have collapsed him. Now it had become brushstrokes, data tea, steam, a small boy standing solid. Sleep came before he finished the thought. During dawn's rosy hush, he carried the wooden spoon to the solar rig. Farah brewed the first kettle. They poured steam into paper cups, while desert light painted everything gold. More lines formed not just for tea, but to volunteer. Samira, a 12-year-old who'd lost 2 fingers in war, asked if she could learn to mend the solar tubes. Terrence promised training. Alex texted Boston, "Sun rises on cue, courage too." Ella replied with a sun emoji, army and new mission. "Teach 3 people to lead the ritual without you. Passing the ladle is the real magic." By week's end, sun and tea stations in Zaatari were run entirely by residents. SphereTech engineers left behind code for tracking vitals via donated smartbands. UN officials approved a pilot for 2 more camps. On the flight home, Alex stared out the cabin window at endless desert giving way to Mediterranean blue. Grace dozed. Terrence drafted a white paper. Ella was likely sprint coding a badge entitled Desert Data Hero. He touched the wooden spoon in his carry-on, felt pulse steady under his fingertips, and closed his eyes not to escape, but to replay the roar of sand like music proof that even in barren places, 5 minutes of warmth can coax something fearless to grow. Boston lights welcomed them near midnight. The mansion's atrium map now featured a new golden pin brighter than the rest. Ella stuck it in herself, then handed Alex a blank sticker sheet. Space for the next miracles, she said. And in that quiet hour, the team realized their mission no longer traveled by cocoa tea or any single cup. It traveled by ladles, by routines, by data and laughter and storms endured together. Sunlight was simply the messenger. October draped Boston in red-gold leaves, yet the map in the mansion's atrium pointed farther north than any sun and cocoa pin, so far Tromsø, Norway, above the Arctic Circle. Reporters had begun asking whether the 5-minute sunlight formula could work where November meant 2 months of polar night. If sunlight was the messenger, what happened when the messenger never showed? Ella Brooks, now sporting a new pair of purple glasses and an even longer title on her homemade badge, Director of Mission Imagination, declared it the perfect next test. She argued in a pitch deck peppered with unicorn clip art that courage doesn't care what the sky is doing, and proposed swapping sunlight for full-spectrum lamps, cocoa for hot cloud berry juice, and 5 outdoor minutes for 5 under the aurora if the sky cooperated. Alex listened, stirring a mug of Boardwalk Bold. Just a year earlier, darkness had been his enemy. Still, every skeptic's tweet was another cone on the path. He nodded. We prove warmth works where the sun can't. Grace coordinated flight's commercial this time because SphereTech's board advised visible frugality after the Jordan expansion. Terrence packed portable EEG headbands to measure seasonal effective signatures. Grandma Millie vacuum-sealed pouches of powdered cocoa concentrate. Tromsø's harbor would receive a pallet by cargo boat the same day they landed. Dr. Patel insisted on remote monitoring. Ella countered with a plan to stream all vitals onto a public dashboard labeled Brave in the Dark. The night before departure, Ella came to the greenhouse clutching a stuffed narwhal. Can I really go? She asked. School policies frowned on 10-year-olds missing 2 weeks even for humanitarian rendezvous. Alex knelt eye level. We can loop you in from here. You'll run mission control. We'll be your astronauts. Her disappointment flickered, then morphed into purpose. Okay, but I get live video every hour, and first look at the data. 2 days later, Alex, Grace, and Terrence stepped off a regional jet onto a wind-scoured runway lit by sodium lamps. Noon looked like twilight. Mountains ringed the city in shadow. The air smelled of seaweed and ice. Local partner Ingrid Dahl, a community psychologist, guided them to a converted fish-packing warehouse now strung with LED grow lights. Dozens of residents, many grappling with seasonal depression, sat on pallet couches sipping weak coffee. Ingrid explained that half her patients skipped dawn simulation sessions because they felt artificial. She hoped Coco Community and Alex's improbable story might override skepticism. Grace wheeled in the Sunlamp Lounge foldable frames draped with high CRI panels programmable to cycle pink-orange like the desert sunrise Ella had filmed in Jordan. Terrence set up EEG headbands and Alex placed a thermos of hot cloudberry juice on each bench. Their first participant, a nursing student named Liv, admitted she hadn't seen actual sunlight in 41 days and counted panic attacks instead of sheep. Alex demonstrated the ritual sit-wrap fingers around the cup. Let steam fog your glasses, feel the lamp on closed eyelids. Liv's shoulders dropped by the third breath. 5 minutes later, her EEG beta waves were down 20%. She opened her eyes, whispering the lamps looked almost real. A dozen others cued. Ella, watching from Boston between math homework and Cocoa Line graphs, pinged a rainbow fireworks GIF onto the shared dashboard. Lamp and courage out, she typed. Data streamed in heart rate variability up, self-reported mood scores rising. After 3 days, the lounge averaged 60 visitors per session. Some asked for songs. Alex borrowed a local's acoustic guitar and strummed brushstroke asphalt, the strings twanging against sub-zero air. People swayed beneath pink light, holding cups that tasted of tart berry and distant summer. Liv started leading afternoon sessions herself. The experiment's success attracted cameras and critics. A Northern Europe talk show host dubbed it Silicon Valley glowworm therapy and asked whether vulnerable people were being turned into data points for PR. At home, Sphere Tech shares dipped on rumors Alex planned to pivot entirely to health tech. Grace scheduled a live-stream Q&A from inside the lounge. Alex answered every tough question, open-source data, no patent on lamps, cocoa margins reinvested locally. Liv, now visibly brighter, stepped forward and said in accented English, "Even fake sun can feel real when someone hands it to you with warmth." Her words clipped through cynicism like aurora through cloud. Yet a new challenge crept closer, quieter. After days of 24-hour supervision, Grace's voice went hoarse. Terrence's charts blurred. Alex's own sleep shortened to 4 hours. One evening, while refilling thermoses, Alex fumbled and scalded his wrist. The physical pain was trivial. The jolt of helplessness was not. Darkness pressed in, whispering that fog could still return. He slipped outside alone, snow squeaking under boots. The fjord lay black mountain silhouettes. For the first time in months, panic brushed his chest, a ghost reminding him that sun remained absent. He focused on breath counts, but the old vertigo edged closer. A video call buzzed. Ella's face filled the screen 2 time zones and thousands of miles away. "Mission control check-in," she said, oblivious to his tremor. "Give me 3 mm-ms from the cold." Alex looked around, salt ice smell, distant dog bark, green aurora teasing above peaks. He listed them. She clapped. Now the secret rule: if you list them, you have to share them. She flipped her phone to show Millie and Dr. Patel listening. Saying the words aloud cracked the icy grip on his lungs. Back inside, he handed the scalded wrist to Terrence for salve and accepted Grace's scolding with a grin. The teamwork, like shared cups, kept the lamps truthful. By the final week, attendance doubled, then tripled. Ingrid requested materials to build 3 more lounges before the polar dawn. Sphere Tech's board, seeing brand sentiment rebound, greenlit funding. The skeptical talk show host returned, this time filming Alex walking the snowy quay, laughing as Liv handed him a cup labeled "Fake Sun, Real Heat." On their last night, the city celebrated return of the light, even though sunrise was still weeks off. Residents released biodegradable lanterns, each carrying a handwritten fear. Alex's lantern read, "Fog of Panic." It drifted upward, lamp glow mingling with aurora. Back in Boston, Ella placed a new star on the atrium map, a blue one for places where sunlight never rose, yet warmth did. She yawned, cheeks smudged with marker, and looked at the remaining blank corners. "We'll need new colors," she told Grandma Millie. There are miracles left under every kind of sky. When Alex walked through the mansion doors the next evening, wrist-bandaged, eyes bright, Ella tackled him with the narwhal plush. Data says lamplight equals brave points. She held up the dashboard, mood gains, holding steady critics, quiet donations flowing. He set a cup of Norwegian cloudberry syrup on the table beside a Jordanian mint sachet and a Boston cocoa tin, 3 climates, same ritual. Ready for the next impossible. Ella nodded, retrieving blank sticker sheets. Always. And as night settled over Boston, ordinary, not polar, Alex felt no urge for the visor or the VR forest. The real world, with its rotating roster of skies, was delivering more horizons than any headset could render, and he finally knew how to greet each one. 5 minutes, 1 warm drink. Courage compounded, sun optional. News of the hurricane reached the mansion long before the outer bands scraped the Gulf Coast. Category 4 steering straight for Houston, home to 2 Sun and Cocoa pilot lounges and the warehouse that stored half the Foundation's mobile rigs. Alex stood before the wall map, watching the swirling red radar blot bite deeper into Texas. Grace muted the television, and the room turned cavern quiet, except for the pepper leaves rustling in the greenhouse. The board had a straightforward suggestion. Pull staff out, let insurance handle the damage, resume the program when the city dried out. But Ella, twirling a marker between her fingers, pointed at the jagged storm cone. "People can't wait for the sun after the sun leaves," she said. "Courage works best right when everything's scary." 2 hours later, they were on a charter flight, storm kits packed into the cargo hold, solar generators, instant heat kettles, racks of battery lamps, pallets of powdered resilience, cocoa, fortified with protein. Terrence ran inventory mid-air. He counted enough supplies to serve 10,000 cups, provided the roads weren't underwater. Doctor. Patel, patched in from Baltimore, argued gently about risk, but Alex heard in her voice the same resigned hope she'd shown when first agreeing to a sidewalk ritual outside Burger Barn. Send vitals. If numbers spike, you pull back, she said. He promised. Ella had to stay behind this time. School wouldn't bend for hurricane season, but she transformed mission control into a pop-up in the mansion library. Grandma Millie kept the cocoa kettles whistling for overnight data shifts. Globe lamps replaced reading sconces, turning mahogany shelves into a cockpit glowing blue and gold. The plane punched down through outer rain bands into a city of tin roofs and tar-striped highways already aqueous. National Guard convoys crawled west. Everyone else was headed the opposite direction. Sphere Tech badges opened roadblocks that would have stopped any other van full of cocoa powder. Grace drove wheels hissing across watery asphalt, while Alex navigated submerged streets on an emergency services feed. At one intersection, an uprooted billboard blocked the lane. They stepped into thigh-high water to pivot it just enough for the van to squeeze past. Lightning stitched the clouds overhead. They reached the first lounge, a community center near a bayou, minutes before the eye wall rolled in. The roof had peeled open like a sardine lid. Inside, aluminum chairs bobbed in ankle-deep water. Lamp rigs hung twisted. Terrence's jaw tightened. We can't serve here. Alex felt the fog start to slide over him. Ruined equipment, 48-hour drive for nothing, but caught it on the first swirl. He pressed his wrist to the pulse sensor Grace had insisted he wear. Heart rate 122, breath shallow. 3 brushstroke counts later, it was dropping. There's a shelter 3 miles north, Grace said, checking the city feed. Grade school gym still powered. Wind clawed at the doors like an animal. They reloaded what gear was salvageable, slammed the van doors, and tailed a line of ambulance lights until the school's cinderblock gymnasium emerged through sheets of gray. Inside smelled of wet cardboard and fear. Families huddled on bleachers, staring at phones that had lost signal hours earlier. Alex hauled the first battery lamp to the center of the court and flipped the switch. A soft, dawn-pink bloom pushed back the generator harshness. Terrence fired the instant heat kettles. Cocoa fragrance snaked through the gym faster than the storm warnings. The line formed with little encouragement, parents' first hands trembling, then children chasing the scent. 5 minutes with a cup under glow panels didn't fix a blown roof or a flooded living room, but shoulders dropped, crying ebbed. Ella texted the dashboard from Boston Live servings per minute 48 and overlaid a rising thermometer graphic titled Warmth Level. Volunteers cheered each tick as if it were a high score. The eye wall struck just past midnight. Metal doors bowed. The building groaned, but the gym lights stayed on thanks to Sphere Tech battery stacks. Alex served cups side by side with a high school teacher named Marcus, who confessed he'd lost his house an hour earlier. Alex handed him the ladle. Passing warmth on, he said a phrase that had crossed desert's tundra and now a drowning city. During the worst of the howl, a small voice called for a song. Alex hesitated. His guitar was locked in the van, so he hummed the brushstroke tune while Marcus drummed on an empty cocoa tin. Children joined then, adults, until the gym was a human metronome drowning out the hurricane's roar. At dawn, the storm slid east. Sun punched through a ragged ceiling pane. Someone shouted, and bleacher crowds turned as a single ray speared the court, lighting a triangle of vapor rising from spilled cocoa. No lamp could match its color. Ella, watching via Grace's phone, squealed in mission control. She pressed a new button on the dashboard and the word Sunsplash burst across screens in glittering text. The tally by noon. 9 212 cups served 6 lamp rigs deployed heart rate averages, stabilizing 20% faster than Red Cross projections for post-disaster calm. National Guard medics borrowed 3 lamps for a triage tent. A local bakery donated bread. An insurance adjuster wrote a check large enough to replace the destroyed lounge roof. But raw numbers couldn't measure one detail. Alex's wrist sensor never crossed 135, even when the doors shook so hard they seemed alive. 2 years ago, he couldn't endure a gentle rain at a drive-thru. Now a Category 4 had failed to unseat him. After roads reopened, Grace and Terrence ferried remaining kits to 3 more shelters. A young mother recognized Alex from streaming headlines. "You came," she said, disbelief cracking into relief. He only shrugged. "We serve better warm," he answered, lifting a cup. 48 sleepless hours later, they drove north through cleanup caravans, exhaustion thick as humidity. Still, when a stoplight stalled them near a cluster of weary volunteers, Alex opened the van window and offered the last thermos until steam cracked the muggy air. Back in Boston, Ella added a storm cloud sticker to the pinboard, the first badge shaped like anything but a sun. She wrote beneath it, "Proof that courage doesn't melt in the rain." At debrief, SphereTech's board admitted the hurricane footage had raised brand trust more than any marketing spend. Alex, half asleep, murmured that if trust could form in a flooded gym, maybe it was time to decouple Sun Cup entirely, spin it into a public trust no investor could threaten. Grace's eyes widened. Terrence nodded. Ella started sketching logos before the meeting ended. Later that night, lightning still flickered on the mansion horizon, a leftover spark from the storm. Alex sat on the balcony, raincoat draped over a chair, knees aching pleasantly from lifting kettles. He checked vitals, a healthy, tired, not a shaking one. The phone buzzed. Ella had sent tomorrow's mission. Sleep 9 hours, dream of cocoa boats, list 3 things you'd rebuild stronger than before. He texted back 1 roofs, 2 wireless grids, 3 people. Then he closed the balcony door, set an old-fashioned alarm clock, and let the night settle. Outside, distant thunder rumbled like applause that didn't require an audience. The envelope was heavy, thick paper edged in gold and bore the seal of the Massachusetts Attorney General. Alexander Sterling set it on the oak conference table where Sun Cup's founding team, Grace, Terrence, Grandma Millie, Dr. Patel on screen, and Ella with a gel pen poised like a conductor's baton, waited in breath-held silence. He sliced it open. 1 page, 1 sentence that mattered. The Commonwealth hereby recognizes the Sun Cup Public Trust as an autonomous, perpetual nonprofit foundation. Cheers erupted. Ella's pen clattered. The journey from drive-through sidewalk dare to fully protected public trust, immune to hostile takeovers and market squalls, was officially complete. Sun and cocoa and tea and lamplight belonged forever to the people it served. Grace wiped a celebratory tear, then caught Alex's eye. "You just gave away $1 billion equity block," she whispered. He shrugged, grinning. "Turns out daylight isn't something you can IPO." Ella banged a spoon on a cocoa mug to restore order. Next agenda item, Global Launch Day. They had chosen December solstice when half the planet sat in literal or emotional night to run 24 consecutive hours of warmth. 43 countries, 200 lounges, mobile rigs on 3 disaster response ships. A relay of glow lamps, cocoa kettles, and portable EEG headbands would circle the globe like a string of lanterns. Terrence detailed logistics, solar generators staged in Nairobi, powdered berry tea pallets at Tromsø, port lamp arrays, on board the Mercy Fleet vessel bound for Tonga. Grandma Millie announced a new dehydrated cocoa with shelf life equal to MREs. Dr. Patel beamed as her Johns Hopkins students prepped the dashboards. Alex listened, heart steady, until Ella flashed the last slide. Boston flagship sunrise ceremony at Harrison Manor Greenhouse. A slow warmth spread across his chest that had nothing to do with cocoa. After the meeting, Alex lingered by the pepper plants, now thick with winter fruit under grow lights. Grace approached tablet tucked away. For months they'd moved in lockstep flights, storms, midnight debriefs, yet rarely paused. She brushed soil from a leaf and asked, "What's left on your mission list now that Sun Cup's safe?" He considered. "Walk a mile without thinking about it. Finish that song I keep rewriting. And ask a certain chief impact officer if she still likes the idea of slow mornings that don't include crisis briefings." Grace's cheeks colored like the ripest pepper. "Depends who's making breakfast. Millie will insist," he laughed, "but I brew a mean espresso." He reached into his pocket, withdrew a simple titanium ring engraved with a tiny sun. Knees creaked as he knelt, no theatrical guitar this time, just the quiet hum of LED lights and the faint aroma of cinnamon. "Grace Miller, will you?" She pulled him up mid-sentence, kissed him, and said yes before he finished the question. From behind a potted jasmine, Ella squealed about time and recorded the moment for the Sun Cup archives. Solstice dawn arrived clear and cold. The mansion grounds thrummed like a mission control launchpad, satellite trucks outside the gate, volunteers in multicolored hoodies labeled Cup Crew, and lines of visitors weaving between heaters. At 3:58 a.m., EST Tonga texted the first Cups Up photo families under a makeshift lamp rig raising berry tea as the constellation Orion tilted overhead. An hour later, Nairobi pinged a sunrise orange snapshot. Then Tromsø cloaked in polar night, but pink lit from lounges. At 6:47 a.m., Boston's turn came. Ella, official master of light ceremonies, rang a bicycle bell salvaged from the first Coco cruiser. Alex, AFO, braces hidden under black jeans, escorted Grace onto the greenhouse's temporary stage. Lanterns dangled like miniature auroras. A crowd of neighbors' Sun Cup trial alumni and curious onlookers circled pepper beds heavy with fruit. Alex lifted a ladle over an enormous kettle steam swirling into frosted air. 1 year ago, he began I bargained for 5 minutes of sunlight in a burger barn parking lot. Today, we're bottling light for anyone who needs it, no matter the weather, the latitude, or the weight on their chest. He dipped poured into Grace's mug, then Grandma Millie's, then Ella's narwhal-printed cup. Children on parents' shoulders counted down 5, 4, 3. Cups rose. Steam and lamplight painted everyone gold. As the crowd sipped, the mansion's wall screen rolled live metrics, 125,000 cups served, and counting median heart rate dropped 17 beats per minute within 5 minutes, 72 spontaneous sing-alongs logged. Donations ticked upward, every new pledge lighting a pixel on a world map until continents glittered like doused constellations. Mid-ceremony, a gust of coastal wind flipped a lamp rig's cloth backdrop, sending banners flailing. Reflex once might have overridden reason in Alex. Today he handed his cup to Ella, strode over and steadied the frame while volunteers tied knots. Heart rate peaked at 108 and he chuckled at the smartwatch beep. Fog still tried, but courage had built permanent real estate in his chest. Grace approached 2 steaming refills balanced expertly. Global count just broke 250,000, she said, handing one over. And rising, he replied, watching as the map's last dark patch and isolated Arctic research station pulsed bright. The researchers had improvised a lamp from repurposed lab gear, and melted snow for cocoa powder shipped months earlier, proving no corner of the Earth lay beyond reach. Ella scurried up, clipboard aloft. Mission accomplished, new quest, 5 minutes of moonlight, night shift edition. Write the protocol, Alex laughed. We'll beta test it on insomniac coders. Reporters converged as aurora-hued lamps faded into real sunrise. One asked Alex whether sun and cocoa might eventually replace traditional therapy. He shook his head. We're not replacing, just reminding. Bodies calibrate quicker when kindness leads. Another inquired about next frontiers. Grace answered first, swallowing nerves she no longer feared. Disaster ships in the Pacific drought camps, in the Sahel elder care rooftops in Sao Paulo, wherever shadows linger longest. The journalist gestured toward the greenhouse. And personally, Alex caught Grace's hand, sun glinting off matching rings. Personally, we keep walking boardwalks, street parades, maybe an aisle next spring. Grace blushed. Cheers rippled through the crowd faster than any stock spike. Ella seized the moment, raising her cup. To light that never quits. Thousands of screens echoed the toast from Tonga's beaches, where stars still ruled to Tromsø's lounges under violet polar dawn. Steam curled skyward everywhere, carrying the same scent of chocolate berry, or mint, different flavors, identical invitation. Inside, the pepper plants soaked in daylight that felt earned. Alex watched the leaves tremble and thought how miracles now had supply chains, spreadsheets, and a child's unstoppable signature. They also had space to breathe, unowned by markets or moods. Grace leaned into him. 9 hours of sleep, she reminded. After one more lap, he answered, beckoning her onto the flagstone path. No cameras, no timer, just steps that no longer needed counting. Around them, cups clinked heartbeats, slowed lamp rigs shut off as genuine sun flooded in. Kindness, it turned out, never needed a messenger after all. It just needed a spark and someone willing to carry the ladle. And as long as there were empty cups and dark corners, there would be missions. 5 minutes at a time, warmth passed hand to hand, lighting the world long after the cocoa had cooled.